Look at the skyline of modern Singapore. It's a pristine, gleaming hub where 1 in 6 people is a millionaire, and the wealth feels practically baked into the architecture. But go back to the 1940s and 50s, and you find a completely different reality. This was a disease-ridden slum where poverty was rampant, and tens of thousands of laborers were deeply addicted to opium. The island itself is incredibly tiny, with absolutely zero natural resources to extract and sell. Its only real value was its location, sitting right along the Strait of Malacca, a narrow waterway that served as a critical choke point for global trade. Under British rule, the island was operated entirely as a free port. The whole system was designed to extract corporate profit for the East India Company. The colonial administration focused on securing the docks and maintaining trade, while completely ignoring the social well-being of the local laborers who actually did the heavy lifting. The resulting poverty and widespread addiction proved a harsh reality. Having a prime location on the global trade map cannot create a successful nation if the governing system is built solely for foreign extraction. In August 1965, the situation went from bad to an existential crisis. Singapore had briefly merged with neighboring Malaysia, but severe political and racial tensions caused the Malaysian government to forcibly expel them. Singapore was suddenly an independent country entirely against its own will, led by Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Shortly after, they faced a second devastating blow. The British military decided to pack up and leave Southeast Asia. This sudden withdrawal instantly erased the island's defense capabilities and wiped out a massive chunk of domestic employment, leaving the citizens without paychecks or protection. Lee Kuan Yew's government realized that standard economic reforms wouldn't be enough to prevent absolute ruin. To survive, they had to engineer an entirely new civilization from the ground up. Before fixing the economy, the government had to address a severe domestic threat. The population was violently divided along racial and religious lines, with Chinese, Malay, and Indian communities strictly segregated and frequently clashing. You cannot build a functional economy under those conditions. The solution was drastic. The government established the Housing and Development Board, or HDB, which began buying up land to move citizens out of the racialized slums and into massive government-built high-rises. This wasn't an optional program. The government strictly engineered the demographics of every single HDB building to mirror the national population. They forced Chinese, Malay, and Indian citizens to live side by side in the same apartment blocks to physically break down the ethnic divides. Next, they needed foreign investors to trust them. The government created an independent anti-corruption bureau that bypassed standard channels and reported directly to the Prime Minister. Anyone caught taking a bribe faced extreme financial penalties and guaranteed jail time. These aggressive social measures sent a very clear message to the rest of the world. They proved that Singapore was a stable, safe environment where the rules applied to absolutely everyone equally. With stability secured, they launched the first phase of their economic survival plan. They cleared out swampland to build the Jurong industrial town, leveraging the only resource they actually had, a vast pool of cheap, desperate labor. To lure foreign corporations, Singapore offered aggressive tax holidays. Companies from the US, Japan, and Europe were invited to set up factories and operate completely tax-free for their first several years. The tactic worked. Within 2 years, over 250 foreign companies arrived, creating more than 32,000 jobs. By 1970, unemployment in Singapore was effectively wiped out. While relying on cheap labor saved the population from immediate starvation, it possessed a hard economic ceiling. As long as citizens were only making low-end products like mosquito coils and cheap textiles, true national wealth would remain out of reach. The government realized they needed to maximize the profit generated by every single citizen. That meant pivoting away from low-value, high-labor manufacturing. They rewrote the rules again, this time exclusively offering massive tax incentives to high-tech investors who produced electronics and computer parts. Simultaneously, the state funded joint training centers to manually upskill the local workforce to handle complex machinery. This chart illustrates a major financial roadblock from the era, a massive 45% tax barrier that the government levied on bank interest. While the economy was growing, this specific tax was actively blocking the flow of foreign currency and keeping global banks from setting up shop in the country. Prime Minister Lee decided to abruptly abolish this tax. By dropping the government's cut to zero, foreign capital immediately flooded into the local banking system, quickly turning the island into an international financial hub. Singapore outcompeted its larger neighbors by refusing to remain stagnant. They continually rewrote their own economic rulebook to climb higher up the global value chain. Today, the results of this highly structured blueprint are staggering. Singapore holds the second highest GDP per capita globally, and 1 out of every 6 citizens has a net worth of over $1 million. But this manufactured utopia comes with a strict social cost. The government maintains absolute enforcement over minor behavioral laws. You'll face fines for chewing gum, connecting to unsecured Wi-Fi, or not flushing a public toilet, and extreme penalties for drug offenses. It is a fascinating dichotomy that defines the nation to this day. Citizens and corporations enjoy unparalleled economic freedom, but it is deeply offset by heavily restricted individual civil behaviors. Other nations continually fail to replicate Singapore's success because they try to only copy the favorable tax codes. The actual method behind their wealth was treating national survival as an engineering problem, proving that a country's greatest resource isn't underneath the ground, but in the ruthless efficiency of its systems.